Going live as we speak. Let me let that open up. We should be good to go.
Awesome. We're going to call this meeting to order. Looks like we have a quorum. Kathy, can you call for the roll, please? We have Kathy. Is she sending Morse code?
You're muted.
Chuck Cornforth.
Present.
Don Foy.
Present.
Damon Green.
Here.
Don Kessinger.
Here.
Monica Terry.
I'm here.
Leonard Green.
Here. We have a quorum. So we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to yet another version of virtual meetings. I know everyone's just loving them. Aren't they awesome? You get all our friends in one space. I love it. All right. Approval of agenda. We'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the agenda as presented. This is Monica Terry.
Don Foy, second.
It's been properly moved and second that we approve the agenda as presented. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
We can't hear you.
Chuck Cornforth.
Aye.
Don Foy.
Aye.
Damon Green.
Aye.
Don Kessinger.
Aye.
Monica Terry.
Aye.
Leonard Green.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Next up, Superintendent's report, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, sir. Certainly a lot of things going on, as you can imagine. Several things that we're talking about over the course of the last several weeks, but certainly a little shorter time between the last board meeting and this board meeting, but there's certainly still many things that are going on. So COVID-19 report, I just kind of used this as our standing placeholder as an opportunity to kind of share with everybody kind of where we are and what's going on. And again, since the last board meeting, we did finish our summer feeding program as well as summer school, but our summer feeding program, very proud to report over 118,000 meals that we were able to do since March all the way through June. We continued that feeding program all the way through, but we still were giving out a lot of food in June, which I'm very proud of. And I think our families were very appreciative. We received a lot of positive emails and calls and just thank you for our team. So again, food service staff, Sandra, cabinet, as well as any number of our support employees that had anything to do with that. It really was an amazing experience and something I'll still always look back on in a very positive way with our teams. Everybody wants to know right now, its biggest thing is what's going to happen. And certainly I'm not able to share exactly what I think is going to happen because I don't know. I can tell you any number of different things that we're doing in terms of the numbers and way this has all worked. And so our goal has always been to put together a plan that will allow us the flexibility to move in and out based upon what's happening in our region. Obviously, what's happening in our region right now does not trend toward the positive. So we're kind of looking at that and following that. We still have over a month to go, but certainly we're making plans. As I mentioned last month, the survey went out to all of our families as well as to our staff. And looking at that, one of the three things that we talked about and that we surveyed our staff and families on were, tell me how you feel about three different options. And it was an all virtual option. I'm looking, and I've shared this with a video as well, trying to make sure that everybody understood that what we did at the end of last year was not virtual. It was an emergency learning. I think I gave credit to Dr. King about that earlier last month, but certainly The distance learning that we're looking at going forward for next year is going to be dramatically different. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean that it is better than an in-person school, because it's just not. But certainly it's going to be better than what we did in the spring. We talked about a all-in and bringing everybody back, and even with additional cleaning and distancing as much as we can, but just basically bringing back 4,200 kids. And then we talked about this hybrid approach of what this might look like if we had to kind of open in a smaller kind of setting. So I did a video last week and kind of sharing with parents. And so certainly been sharing a few things out, but again, to share it with the board as well, kind of looking at this A/B approach of what that might look like and trying to bring back about half of our students at a time so that we could have smaller classes, that we could have less people on a bus and still follow all the guidelines that we needed to, but at the same time, have time to clean in between, have time to do the things that we need to do. But like I said, also have less of our kids there, but at least being able to see them a couple of days a week. So we're going to be putting this out over the course of the next week of this is what our approach would be as a hybrid model, so that everybody would be able to see what this A/B kind of schedule would look like. Because within the next week, we're going to be having our parents start to make a selection of, are you planning on sending your kid back to us or not? If you're not planning on sending your student back to us because you are concerned about safety or whatever your rationale is, that you will have that virtual approach and that distance learning kind of piece there. The virtual side would be an all virtual. There would not be an opportunity to come back to the regular school portion until the semester. So that way it would end on an actual ending of instruction and where the curriculum would end. If you are coming back to us on this A/B rotation, if that's what we end up finalizing, then you would always have that opportunity to go into a virtual if you chose to do so. But if you're in virtual, you would have to stay until the end of the semester in order to make sure that we can make the numbers work and do the things that we need to do, and also make sure that the students get all the education that they need. I think, Dr. King on the agenda tonight has some more academic updates, and so she'll share a little bit more about some of the things kind of going on and what's happening with those pieces based on some of the feedback that we've had. And there's even a piece of software in consent this evening that we'll kind of share a little bit later on that. But again, our parents are going to have to choose in that particular regard. So we're going to share a little bit more information. We're going to be talking to everybody. You know me, we're going to be doing more videos. We're doing Facebook Lives. We'll be putting out as much information as we possibly can to our parents. We are purposely trying to delay as much as we can, not to make everybody nervous, but to make sure that we have the absolute latest information that is available at that particular time. As I said, over the last 3 weeks, there has been a trend that has not been in a positive way with our numbers and things like that in Jackson County. So we are on calls every week with Jackson County Health, and we get updates from them, as well as I've been on the phone and have calls next week with Mayor of Kansas City, Mayor Lucas, and certainly with DESE about every other week as well. So we keep getting updates and keep looking at things, but certainly I'm very interested in what's happening in Jackson County with Jackson County Health. As you know, they went to a 2.5. What would happen if they believe that they needed to go back to 2? Or what happens if we go back to phase 1? I mean, we need to be prepared for that. So those are the things that we're trying to make sure that we are ready for, so that we can move into those areas and be as fluid as we possibly can in this particular situation. So again, certainly a lot of things going on and a lot of things that we have that are still a little bit in motion, but I wanted to make sure and provide as much information as possible. I mean, the documents that we have with the team that we've been meeting, it obviously goes through all the cleaning processes and what we're trying to do, what's going to happen in between sessions, teachers spraying down with a certain chemical in between classes. That's a safe chemical that, food in the classrooms. I mean, we're looking at every single one of those particular pieces, buses clean and sanitized in between routes. And I mean, we're looking at each one of those components to make sure that we have as comprehensive of approach as possible. So I know it seems a little odd because we don't have a plan, and I know a lot of area school districts have put out a variety of different plans, but I can tell you several districts that have already put out a plan about 2 or 3 weeks ago have already had to update that multiple times based upon what's going on. So again, I know that I said last week, and I'll continue to say, our goal is to put something out by the end of the month so that everybody has the information that they need to make the best and most educated decision that they can based on their own kids. So I've shared with several parents, and when they've emailed or they've concerns, I know Angela has as well, but I tell them I'm a kid. I'm a parent. I have a kid who's a sophomore, and he has severe allergies, and he's got asthma and a variety of other things. So I'm thinking of my own child as well as the other 4,199 kids that we want to make sure that when we do bring them back, that it's as safe as possible, and that we're following all the guidelines that we possibly can. So that's a lot of information in a short period of time, but I want to try to keep giving you as much as I can. I also know that we're streaming this, and individuals are watching these recordings and things, and so I want to make sure that we give them as much information as we can. But again, I'm going to do another video. I'm going to do some Facebook Lives to be able to do some interactions and get feedback and get questions, not only with the parents but with the staff as well. Give them as much information as they can, so that way we can hopefully alleviate as many fears as possible. So I'm happy to take any questions about that particular component, because I know there's still a lot of stuff there, and some of you, I'm sure, I know you got a couple parents on the board as well, but all of you are concerned, as I am, about the 4,200 students in our district.
Yeah, hey,
If there's
Kenny,
no other
thanks.
questions, I'll move on. Sir, yes.
I was gonna say, yeah, thanks for that information. So I guess with the 4,200 students, I guess you've identified, or you're working on identifying the number of students in seats that would be allowed based on those options that you provided. And then secondly, are you looking into a plan to address any overage of requests to be in those seats?
Yeah, that's kind of the reason why we're looking at a kind of split approach. But also we know there may be still an opportunity, or something may happen where we have more numbers in one particular location. So we're looking at other places throughout the building. So maybe you were meeting in a smaller math room that we would put maybe 22 kids in there. But obviously, if we put 22 kids in this small room, we're not going to be able to do that. So we may be looking at other places throughout the building. So you may be doing math class in a different spot than what you normally would, but we'll be utilizing every bit of space. Looking at PE classes, PE classes are just going to have to be outside. So.
Okay, got a delay here, so sorry that I stepped on you there.
You're right.
So with respect to the class, you're talking about class size. I was thinking, school size. So is it not necessarily how many students you have at the high school, where you're saying, say there's 400 students, and to do social distancing, are you actually basing it on the classroom setting, or how are you going about that?
Yeah, because when you look at the entire square footage of, let's say, the high school, I can put a lot of students in the high school, but I have to be very careful about how they're moving, how they're rotating, because the hallways are a little bit different than even the classes. But inside the classes, I'm very concerned about the number of students that we have in there to make sure that we can still distance. Now, obviously, part of our plan right now, it wouldn't matter if we decided we didn't want to wear masks or did. We're under the Jackson County order. So we're moving forward with the understanding that everyone's going to wear masks. And so what would that look like? The 3 to 6 feet social distance is kind of the standard that everyone looks at. So I think there's going to be times it's going to be 3. I think there's going to be times that we're going to be able to do close to 6. But we're looking at each one of those components. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It's not just the classes, but it's also within the building and traffic patterns, and how do we get everybody in? We can't just bring everybody in the main doors of the high school and everyone just comes at the exact same time. That defeats the purpose. So we're going to look at different entrances for the buses, and how do we bring people in at different times and stagger when people come in there and rotate around. The middle schools are looking at rotating teachers instead of students, because of the way that their buildings are laid out and stuff. So we're looking at every one of those particular components right now to kind of see what is the best possibility that gets us the best distancing and following the guidelines as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez, I have a question. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the population of students that's going to potentially choose virtual only option. And how does that look for them with regards to extracurriculars? I'm not necessarily thinking sports, because I'm assuming if they're doing virtual, they aren't going to be joining a sports team, but clubs, right? So student council and things like that that are, often before and after school. Do you have thoughts on how they can still participate in some of those things if they're choosing a virtual option?
Yeah, and actually, I do think that there's going to be individuals that may decide to do virtual that would still want to participate in sports. I don't know that that's 100% the case, but I think it's a possibility. Our initial discussions have been around, in most of the areas, school districts have kind of done something similar about anything after school, maybe even before and after school, that if a student is virtual, they would still be able to participate in those particular activities. We want to make sure that they can still interact in that regard. Now, you couldn't be in drama that meets during the day and come just for that class or whatever like that. If you're virtual, you would definitely be virtual. I can't do band first period and then leave. If you're virtual, you're virtual. But yeah, right now we're developing plans that would allow for students who are virtual to still participate in activities that are before and after school.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I will move forward.
Please do.
Administrative retreat, obviously, it might be a little bit different than usual, but we're still going to have our administrators back next week. We're extremely excited to be able to meet with them. And obviously, they have a lot of things to discuss, and we got a lot of things to talk about and kind of go through with everything that I just said, and to kind of keep them rolling. But Dr. King, I don't know if you want to add anything to administrative retreat and kind of your plans this year of how that may look.
All right, so hi, everybody. We have 3 days for administrative retreats, 2 of them with all admin and 1 with just building admin. So the 1 day with all admin is basically going to be the same, going through policies, going through everything that we need to get checked off to make sure everybody's aware. The legal day will look, I'm sure, similar, but also a lot of information about the legalities of what we're facing and things to be aware of, going forward with school. This next year. Our admin PDA that is for building administrators is going to really focus around not as much professional development as it is going to focus on what does your building going to look like, make it a work session kind of thing of plotting out a few of the things that are going on. Here's the plan. How is it going to look in your building? Come up with your plan so that you're able to, when it comes time to communicate that to your community and your staff as well. Be glad to entertain any. We were moving around. We had to change locations several times because places weren't going to be able to accommodate us. But we have found 3 locations that are large enough and are gracious enough that we're going to be able to social distance, wear masks, and be able to actually be together in one place.
All right, if there's no questions, I'll move on.
Please.
So on centralized enrollment, obviously we talked about this a little bit last time, but certainly different, and doing everything online, which is where we started. I mean, obviously after 2016, when I became superintendent, but 2 years prior to that, we actually were looking at between 14 and 15, we started this process, and this is ultimately where we wanted to be anyways, but this kind of pushed us to get there maybe a little bit faster. So certainly a lot of things going on. I know Angela's already on the call, but Ms. DeAnde, I don't know if you want to kind of share maybe where we're at with our online registration and online enrollment, because obviously our numbers are a little different this time, but I know I think we had an update today on that.
We did have an update. We currently have 945, I believe, completed enrollments. We have quite a few more that are in the hopper but not completed. So we're feeling pretty good about how things are going. We've had appointment by appointment only help that we had over at the TLC Center for families that still need support for that. And of course, the UPS store is also still helping us with scanning documents for residency and registration. So we think that's going pretty well, considering we hopped forward a year and we're just jumping in with everything we have to get it done, hopefully. So, and then we will put guidance out later in regard to people that may not have gotten enrolled, but we're encouraging everybody to go through this process. Ms. Cordier, did you have anything to add?
No, ma'am. Everything is going just as planned. We are making sure that our parents on the website, if they have any frequently asked questions, of course, they can call me. But it's quite extensive on the website. I'm also working with Sheba, and she is also doing emails. There will be, I believe, another phone blast out tomorrow. When we get the phone blasts and the emails, we also have a spike that day in registration. So it's working quite well.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And thank you very much to both of you. But I know Angela has been running that for a couple of years now, and it gets better every single year. And obviously throwing a different curveball at you this year, but I appreciate you, and the team's been fantastic as well. And I know you'll say that and give credit to them, but I appreciate your leadership on that and pushing it forward. So those numbers seem pretty good to me. But again, any questions around that process or anything else that you would like to know on centralized enrollment?
I don't have a question, but a comment. So probably the first time since there's been anything online, I did not wait till the very last day to do my online portion. I did already enroll, and I wanted to do it before this meeting because I wanted to see how easy it was and if I had any feedback. And I just want to say, super easy, walked me through pictures of my kids, so I knew which kid I was enrolling at each time. So I just want to say thank you. It was so easy. It was amazing. So good job.
I always try to make sure I get mine done quickly because I don't want to be that one that I get emailed from one of my staff of, hey, are you going to enroll your kid? You know, you have to still do that, right? So I try to get that done as quickly as possible as well, because I feel like I'm going to get called out on it if I don't. So board priorities update. I mean, obviously there's any number of things that are going on. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to put them in a few concise things because it's kind of random right now. I will say, since the last board meeting, and certainly a lot of wonderful things happening with graduation and how we handled that and how it went, I can tell you that was one of the most special things that I've been a part of, in light of things going horribly in terms of the end of their senior year. I was still very proud of how everybody came together. I can't say enough about the city and their partnership with us. Certainly the high school team, they came together, they put this plan together. Certainly it was a team effort with Dr. King and several other individuals helping and pushing through, but I'm telling you, it was a group effort, starting with the high school team and the things that they put together. And I got any number of positive comments from families, and I know many of you were involved in this as well. So I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I can tell you that even after that, there was a lot of positive, and we put the video out, and I don't know if you've been able to watch the video, but a lot of positive comments there. And certainly that's Sheba's vision for the video and how that worked, but it was absolutely a phenomenal thing. But it was the collaboration and bringing everybody together to work together that I was extremely proud of for our district. And it was a good moment, again, making as best possible in a bad situation, in my opinion. We'll also say certain things we're still moving forward with, and still talking to individuals, especially about our Pathways partnerships. Obviously, we have 2 new superintendents in our Center and Hickman Mills school districts. Over at Center, we have one that at least we know in Dr. Cargile, who moved over from Hickman Mills. But we have a brand new superintendent over in Hickman Mills who I've only been able to speak to once. And so I'm looking forward to meeting with him a little bit more. But this partnership is still very much in play, and we're still moving forward with everything that we've stated. And I'm hoping to be able to come back to the board maybe even next month and talk to you about the Kaufman Foundation grant that we've been working on for about 4 months now, and the money that will be given to us by that foundation to help support the work and push it forward over the course of the next years. But this work is still going to continue. We're talking with everyone about virtual internships and what does that look like and what does that mean. But we're still doing this. This is not going to be something that we're going to use this as an opportunity to take a back seat and stop everything that we're doing. I know Dr. King and her team are still very much in the thick of this, and we're moving forward with that. And then again, I'd say that the cultural competency side of this is going to move forward in I think a really positive way. the work that we've already done and the foundation that we've laid, again, we've had that discussion, we've talked about that, but I'm very excited to use this as an opportunity to move us forward and push it forward. Yeah, even if for some reason we have to be all virtual, I can tell you we're still going to move this forward. I'm going to put groups together with students, and we're going to have this opportunity in these discussions. And that's the part I'm really excited about. We've been wanting to do this for the last year or so with students, and we just haven't had that opportunity. So this is the perfect time for that. I've already talked with Chief, and we're going to get the police involved, and we're going to have some really honest dialogues and feedback conversations, and making sure that we can have these conversations besides continuing to push the work forward with our staff, which again, I'm still very proud of, but a lot of positive things that are still going to come out of, again, a lot of negative kind of things that are happening around in terms of what's happening around our country. But I think we'll be able to use that for a very positive outcome, especially in our district. That's all for me, unless any questions.
I just have to say, I think that is absolutely awesome. I got a chance to watch that video with, and I always get his, is it Jabari?
It is.
Okay, that young man is absolutely amazing, but the conversation that was going on to include our kids in that, we're in unprecedented times. So I think that is absolutely amazing that you're going to continue that and that we're a part of that process, because as we learn and grow together, that's how we're going to move forward. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jari, it glitched for me for a second, so I'm making sure that you said the name right, but Jari is his name, and he's an amazing individual who's going to be a senior this year. And I've been talking to him, particularly as a sophomore, and being able to move him through. But he's a fantastic, and he's one of many, and you guys know this. We have amazing kids in this school district, and so he's one that I'm very proud of, and I try to tell him any chance that I get. But giving him those kind of opportunities, he's pretty good kid to be out there talking, and represents us very well.
Definitely. And just to kind of toot our own horn, there was a young lady that's working down at the Fed as well that's representing Grandview quite well. And of course, I can't think of her name, just went right out of my head, but been doing great, getting all kinds of great responses and reviews. So it's awesome. We're being represented well. Our kids are doing this great, and I love it.
People know who we are. It's fantastic.
All right. Anything else, Kenny?
That's it for me, sir.
All right. Next up, salient dates.
Well, we talked about that and referenced it just a little bit ago, but the work session, it says location to be determined. And so we'll send out some information on that, and make sure that we send out the rest of that information. Convocation, I will say it does say GHS auditorium. That is incorrect. Obviously, we're not planning on bringing all of our students back and everything. So it may be corrected on the, on the agenda. It's not on there, it's just on my printout. So we did remove that because we're not planning on bringing everybody back. We will do convocation with everybody kind of back in their school sites, and kind of do something a little bit different, obviously, than we normally would, but we'll still have it on that particular day. And then again, right now, first day of school is still scheduled for August 24th.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, written correspondence. I don't believe we have any. Kathy?
We have none tonight, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Finance Committee report. Chuck? Chuck, you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, July 14th at 5:15. Attendance was myself, Mr. Damon Green, Mr. Don Kessinger, Miss Anne Marie Cook. There were no guests in the audience. Ms. Cook asked if there were any questions related to items on tonight's open board. Mr. Kessinger requested additional information regarding the contract with Johnson Controls. We went to an inspection of warrants. Mr. Green examined all warrants over 15,000. Mr. Kessinger and myself examined expense and reimbursement warrants. Based on our examination, the Finance Committee recommend the warrants be approved by the Board of Education. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next up, recapitulation of funds.
Yes, got a few things there. little few things to talk about, but Ms. Cook?
Yes, this represents the financials through the end of June, which is the end of our fiscal year. On the revenue side, for our current taxes, I shared with you last month that we had rallied back a little bit, and we ended up receiving just shy of $22 million for the year, which was a little over 98% of our budget. You see the information on where we fared for the rest of the funds. We got 98% of our state funds, and we actually received 107% of our federal fund budget, but that was due to, we did receive some of the CARES emergency fund during June. So that is reflected in those numbers. On the expenditure side, as is typical, our expenditures for June were pretty elevated as we close out the year and process our payroll, as well as an extra run to for our vendors to make sure we properly account for things in the correct fiscal year. We're still closing out the year and doing any adjustments we need to do to submit the ASBR and prepare for our audit. But at this point, we anticipate ending the year with a deficit of about $350,000, better position than we had expected. I think I shared that we were pretty conservative in our budget estimates last month. We expect our operating fund balance to be at about 15.55%. So, you know, as a reminder, the goal is 18% plus or minus 2%. This gets us a little lower than that, but we've shared with the board for several months that we anticipated that, and we'll have to make accommodations moving forward to make sure we stay in appropriate levels. Happy to respond to any questions. Do want to share that moving forward, we did receive some preliminary numbers from the county. This is not a reassessment year. So at the first part of July, they do send some preliminary numbers. Our assessed valuation went down about $20 million. While on the one hand, we're never happy to see our assessed valuation go down, I will say that I'm pleased if that more accurately reflects what the properties are valued at and what we can bill at and what we can set our levy at. You know, last year that was a reassessment year, and there were a lot of concerns over the results of that process. And so a lot of people submitted protests to the Board of Equalization. And so that process went on all year long. And I think and so the $20 million reduction is a reflection of that. I think I shared last month that the good news is the way the calculation works for the tax levy, as that goes down, and since we're not at our maximum, we will be allowed to adjust our levy to get back to having a pretty flat revenue source from our taxes. Actually, we can recognize a slight CPI increase, which isn't a lot, but we'll take every little bit that we can get. So be watching that, and we'll be prepared for that because the board won't set the levy till September, but wanted to provide that update because we did receive that information in the last couple of weeks. So happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions, concerns? All right, well, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Audience participation on action or discussion agenda items. Anyone that has registered with our secretary will be called upon when the item comes up. We will move on to the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
This is Monica Terry. I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Don Kestner, second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chuck Cornforth,
Aye.
Don Foy,
Aye.
Damon Green,
You're on mute, Damon.
Hey, I just had one question on that. I saw that the Canvas quote was in there. Is that going to be implemented this year?
That would be the plan. Yes, sir. That's part of Dr. King will kind of talk about that a little bit in her update.
Okay, thanks. Aye.
Don Kessinger,
Aye.
Monica Terry,
Aye.
Leonard Green.
Aye, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Next up, action agenda, student success. CNI update. Kenny?
Yeah, when Dr. King and I talked about this last month, leading up to last month's, it was something that was on the previous year's agenda because it's kind of, usually around testing and stuff like that. And so we decided it might just be a good idea to have this as a standing item for right now and to continue to provide as much information as possible. So obviously she did that last month. And so we have a little bit more information this month. And so to your question, Mr. Green, and some of the things that we talked about during the superintendent's report around there. Happy to have Dr. King share some more information and kind of give you a sense of what's going on and how that might work for next year. So, Dr. King?
So since the last time that I was able to speak to you, we have been able to meet with some curriculum writers from our and department chairs from every grade level and every department at the secondary level. And what we took were essential learnings that needed to take place in all grade levels. What are those essential skills that must to move forward? And then we were able to take those essential learnings, and the next grade level found the corresponding standard that would in what unit that it would fit in. Part of the concern that we were having was that teachers were thinking I'd have to go back and teach fourth quarter all over again of the previous year, and we would just get further and further behind. So what we were able to do was then tie in those essential learnings to the next standard, and then they're going to be able to just go back a little bit on those to get any missing skills that students might have. So I feel like that we've got a good plan for that, knowing that we need to be very succinct and very specific on getting current levels when students come back using our iReady, knowing that we always see some fallback from grade to grade. So knowing that could be a little bigger, a little deeper, we're coming up with the plan on how we're going to make sure those are addressed in the curriculum and not get our students further behind by stopping everything and going back and reteaching fourth quarter of last year. So I wanted to make sure I brought that up on just how we're working it curricular wise. Part of the surveys results that we heard from parents and teachers was really about a lot around, it was just so much to navigate. I had to go here for an email. I had to go here for the Zoom meetings. And there was a lot of moving back and forth and trying to keep all of that straight, especially when you have multiple children, was daunting. And it was tough for our teachers as well, just knowing that we didn't have that the time to get anything to put into place that was going to make things more systematic in our approach. So as I told Dr. Rodriguez, it is going to be, if we do that again, that's on us now, because now we've had the time and we've had the ability to think things through in a more systematic way. So one of the things that you just approved was the use of Canvas. And so I'm going to share my screen here and show you just a brief picture of what Canvas can do. Just a little, tell me if can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through just a little bit of what it can do. If you're familiar at all with Canvas, this is a platform used at a lot of universities, higher ed, and now they have reached down and it has now been expanded out. And basically, if you look at that, it's all of those things are enclosed in this one platform. It is just the tool to get your curriculum out. It will not come with a canned curriculum or a canned lessons or grade level. It will just be the system that we're going to be able to roll it out with you on. So this is what it's going to do for us. No matter if we're virtual or whether we're hybrid or we are all in class, and thinking that we can now use snow days differently, there will never have to be any break in learning that can take place. So this tool is going to allow us that seamless transition from blended to distance learning. Right there are just the benefits for just the individual stakeholders as well. But if you look at the parent one especially, there's this completely transparent view that parents will have see in one click. They log in, they will see all of their students. They will be able to click on each of their students and then see all the assignments. They'll be able to communicate with the teacher directly. They'll see grades. They'll see any missing assignments that their students may or may not have. They will be able to see exactly, there's going to be no mystery of what students are doing or are not doing with there. For teachers, it's going to be a lot of really nice accessibility for them. You can use your laptops, you can use your phones, you can use anything that you'd like. It will deliver content instantly. There are features that are, the bells and whistles on this thing are really very, very unique to what Canvas is going to be able to offer. Personalization, multimedia learning. There are ways to link in everything that we have already done. Google Classroom, Seesaw, anything we've done will fit into Canvas, so that the teachers won't really have to learn a new system. They only need to learn a new platform in which that they're going to offer it to. For students, there's a single login. That's all they have. They won't have to go for here for a Zoom, for here for anything else. It's all there. What it does for the administrators in this district is it is a way that we're going to be able to monitor. We're going to be able to assess the learning that's going on. We're going to be able to have greater accountability for both teachers and students, and for ourselves going forward. So this is what a typical elementary student would view if they were to log in. They would see that, I mean, it's very friendly for them. They would see where their morning work is, their math, any of their subjects that they have. If you look over here on the side, they're going to be able, if there's anything that the teacher wanted to link in, Clever is the system that we use for iReady. Anything that's over here, they would be able to use as well. There's a spot for emails back and forth, calendar for any assignments that might be coming up. So if we were to click then on, let's say, the writing course, this is what they would see. They would click into the writing, and then they would see exactly what they just click on these little icons, and the icons would take them then to their assignment. It's interactive in a way that the teacher can communicate with them right there. There would be a way that if the teacher wanted to listen to the student read, she could have something come up and they can click a record button, and the student records themselves reading, and the teacher then can listen to that reading and then respond to the student directly on this platform. This would be an upper elementary. You'd see exactly the units would be there. They'd be able to click on those and then be able to see any assignments that might be needed, any lectures, videos, or anything like that would be right in that system. These are customizable. The teachers will be able to eventually, once we've learned everything, be able to customize theirs. To begin with, we're going to be using a kind of a one template that all classes will have. Your secondary students, their classes look a little differently. It looks a little bit more like it would be at a higher ed. They will see all their courses. They will be able to click on their courses and then see anything that needs to be done in those classes. They will have a to-do list based on when the teachers put in assignments in the calendar, all these will pop up for them. Parents will have this view as well. They'll see exactly what needs to be coming up and when it is due. All their courses will be listed on the sites. The teachers will be able to assign groups for students for like breakout sessions that they'll be able to work together on, some sort of project-based learning based on some of the classes they're in. They'll see a calendar, email directly back and forth with the teacher on this platform, and also see grades. This would be a typical biology class. You'd see exactly what needs to be done, the calendar, be able to see any of the same quizzes are right there. Everything is it's basically the one-stop shop that people were wanting to do. So here would be a teacher view. The teacher would have all of their courses that they teach in here that they'd be able to click on and in and out of. They would also have any professional development that we're going to assign to them, or if they needed a particular module that their principal decided, I really need you to focus on this, so they can assign the teacher. It gives them what they need to be doing on the side. They can view all grades that students have, being able to see who's near mastery, who is not, and so forth. That it marries with Google Classroom. So a lot of our secondary teachers are already using Google Classroom. This just links it together so that the Google Classroom lessons that they've provided can then just be uploaded into Canvas themselves. A parent would be able to click on it and be able to see all the classes. This is if I had a child who's just at the high school. I click on my child at the high school, I would see all of their courses. I would be able to, the only difference between the parent view and the student view is the parent can't respond. The parent can only view, whereas the student is responding, but you could email the teacher directly on there. You'd see exactly what was coming up and you'd see grades. There is also a mobile app if you were just wanting to be at, checking it at the job. And if these are my children, there would be their picture and I could click on their picture and see exactly what they're doing in each of the classes with the grades, just at a moment's glance. And then also looking at, any missing assignments at that point. So that's just kind of an overview, real quick of what Canvas can offer. It is actually pretty intensive for the training that's going to go on. We're going to implement it out in phases so that when we will be ready to go when school starts, we may not have every unit uploaded, but we will be able to work on those as we go. The teachers will then receive that professional development in modules throughout the year to be able to say, okay, so here's the next step that you can use. Here's the next step to make these so that it would be virtually seamless going back and forth. If we needed a snow day, you just take your device home. There's all your assignments right there. If you're sick, you can still log in and still do your assignments. And then if we had to go virtual, there would just be no break in the learning that goes on. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have on Canvas or the learning targets or what proficiency will look like next year.
Just want to be clear, this is basically replacing Google Classroom, right? It looked similar.
It's very similar. Yes, ma'am. The only thing it will give everything will be in that one spot, but it also provides more transparency for the administrators. What part of the problem with Google Classroom is the administrators, unless they were listed as a student in the classroom, couldn't really see they would just see the student view at that point. The administrators will now be able to get in and out of these, watch the videos, actually chat with some students to say, hey, so what are you learning in here? What is the big thing that you're learning in here right now? That just like they would in a classroom, just in and out of a classroom. It's just taking the four walls of a classroom and we've just made it virtual, but we've been able to have a lot of the same things that we would see in a brick and mortar building.
I can say as a parent, my favorite feature that you showed was on that right-hand side, the list of all the tasks, because my least favorite thing in Google Classroom was having to go into each classroom and figure out what they needed to do that day. So thank you for that. But I did have one other question on the left-hand side of the screen, I think in the secondary ed. It was showing different apps, like I think ConnectEd and things like that. So they'll still be utilizing some of those. They're just going to link out of that one place instead of using like Clever to go to McGraw-Hill and Clever to go to StudySync and then Google Classroom. So that's the advantage of that, correct?
Absolutely. Canvas has paired with almost every known company out there so that they have that marriage with it. There's going to be a little of learning on the side before we bring it in is with IT. How does that sync work? So we're actually an advantage for the teachers is the teachers will not have to go open up Mastery Connect or SIS to put their grades in. They can put them in directly in Canvas and then there will be an upload into SIS. Any communication that they make with parents, they're not going to have to record it here and then go over and record it in another place. It'll all be uploaded directly. The principal can click on and say, okay, I want to see how many of my teachers contacted students, spoke to students this week. They can pull that up in a glance and see exactly who's been communicating, how much they've been communicating, and then correspond that to how the student's doing, how much the student's logging in. And the idea here is what we did before was good for the moment, but we didn't have all of our kids engaged. This is going to provide us a better tool for engagement and making sure that that's happening.
Well, then I even think of, not to put them on the spot, but certainly think about like Mr. Green and having kids in multiple grades at multiple buildings, elementary, middle, and high. And so in our conversation, but in conversation I had with several parents of, I have a kid in multiple buildings at multiple levels, and I have to log into this one to see all the 15 different things and log into this to see it and log into this to see it. And I can't even figure out whether they're on task or not. I can't find everything. And so that was the number one thing that we heard, was that we needed to be able to have a unified system that would be able to do that. And so certainly this was the best one that we felt like was best for us in terms of what we had in integrating all the components of the things that we use, but then could certainly provide that for all of our families. I think that was one of the best things that I saw for sure.
iReady will link directly in as well. iReady is currently working on how they would diagnostically test virtually. They still haven't worked all the kinks out yet exactly because there's a little, but if we had to be all virtual, we need to know exactly what present level they're working on so that we can be, hyper focused and on moving each individual student. And so it's going to be very important that we know that current level and we're able to have conversations about that, as a staff. They're working on that piece as well, so that there will be a way that's logged in that parents will know when they're logging in to take that test as well. So I think companies are thinking we need to make things more accessible. This isn't going to go away even when a pandemic's over. We need to have this option available for anybody going forward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. King, and thank you to your team too. A lot of the work that you guys have done over the last 2 years, while you did not anticipate being in this particular spot, it actually has helped us tremendously in getting the curriculum in the position that you could upload it and it could be in this spot and be as seamless as it is. And then the analysis that you guys have been doing. So certainly kudos to you and Ms. McCracken and certainly Mr. Sizemore as well. And Ms. Bradley previously. So thank you very, very much to you and your team. Appreciate the efforts.
Definitely. All right. Moving on.
No items submitted for area 2, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. And next up, resource stewardship and organizational efficiency focus area.
Yes, we have an item for you today. First conversations and then a first item that was brought to you in March. And then we did reference this last month during board meeting as well. But we have a contract and resolution for you to review and vote on this evening, but for Johnson Controls. So turn it over to Ms. Cook, kind of give us an understanding of where we're at. And then I know we've got a couple guests on the line as well to help answer some questions. And I've got a PowerPoint whenever anybody wants to go through if we need to.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Yeah, just to go back and review a little bit, kind of what led us up to this point. Back in March, the board did approve us working with Johnson Controls on a project development agreement. We've been looking at doing something like this for a while. These performance contracts, it's not new. It is new to Grandview, but it's certainly not new, something that school districts around the country have been taking advantage of for quite some time. As we worked through taking a look at some of our options, we identified Johnson Controls. They have gone through a national process and have a Sourcewell contract to provide these type of services. Some of you may recall that is the mechanism we used when we purchased our bleachers last year for the stadium project. So that is very helpful. That group has kind of done the work as far as doing the bid process and awarding the national contracts. So in March, you approved Johnson Controls as our partner. The way that operated, it's kind of in 2 phases. The first phase is obviously that project development agreement where we've worked with Johnson Controls since that time. A lot of time in meetings. They've been in our buildings working closely with Angela Brantley, our director of facilities with Sodexo, and her staff, spent hours surveying our buildings, spent even more hours back in their offices crunching a bunch of numbers to try to put this all together. And through conversations, have come up with this plan whereby we can get some much needed facility improvements taken care of and use some blended funding, which will include rebates, energy savings, operational savings, and which can be quite a bit, especially when you start looking at some of our system-wide things like our HVAC. Right now we've got a lot of old equipment. It's at the end of its life, and we have been dealing with things in a reactive manner. There's a lot of challenges with that from the financial aspect. Obviously, we would always prefer that those are planned things. And then also, just when you think about it, you know, when things break down, you've got the building comfort. And while our facilities team does a great job of getting things back online, sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. And so we're really excited about the opportunity to get new systems in place. And avoid some of those challenges we've had. So with the rebates, with redirecting the savings that we'll have and doing some capital investment, we feel we've put together this package for you that includes 10 improvements throughout the district. Like as I said, we're really excited to be able to get these things done. A nice thing is that when after assuming we finalize this, Johnson Controls will manage these projects. They'll have a supervisor on site and managers. And so certainly Angela and we will be meeting with them and have some oversight, but they'll do the lion's share of the work. So tonight we have Vince Ardito and Craig Mays with Johnson Controls with us. And Craig actually has some ties to our Grandview family. So they have a presentation and then they'll be available to help us respond to any questions you may have. So unless there's any questions right now, I'd turn it over to Vince and Craig for their presentation.
They both have ties to Grandview, so.
Yeah.
We both do. I'm a 1988 graduate, and Craig's mom retired from the district a few years ago. Would you like me to present my screen, or did you want to pull the PowerPoint up? How did you want to do that, Ian?
I got you up, I think.
Yep, I can see it. So Ann did a very good job, so I won't go over everything that she just went over. We began this journey, I want to say 5 years ago, Dr. Rodriguez, probably when we first started talking about it. How could we bring something like the Pathways training to the kids and then maybe make some live learning labs? And we talked about energy. Then Ann and I, over the past couple of years, have been talking about how do we get solar carports? How do we, how to do some other energy stuff? And so we Dr. Rodriguez and I had coffee here probably maybe not quite a year ago. And we said, hey, let's take a look at this. And let's see if we can't, that makes sense for the district. And so that's where we began the journey. And you guys selected us to move forward with doing a development, project development here in March. And we've been working countless hours with your staff, with Sodexo, with some of your chosen contractors such as Design Mechanical to really come up with which we believe is a really good plan. We believe it's a much needed plan for the district. And as I said, I'm from Grandview and Craig's got ties to Grandview and we're really committed to this project. And so we really put a lot of time and effort to make sure that we got our I's dotted and T's crossed, and we're really giving you guys some good things to take a look at. But the project we're recommending it's called a contingent payment energy savings contract. And really what that is, it allows us to spend the money, make the upgrades. There's no payments during the construction period required. And the construction period is estimated to last until about August of 2021 to get everything done. Once we get that completed and we get operating, this helps to redirect some dollars that you're spending with the utility company or just to keep systems up and running because they were failing. We guarantee no construction overruns as we do this. And the contingent payment is based on the savings achieved. So quarterly, we will come back and we will take a look at the savings in partnership with you where we're at. And if for any reason those savings fall short of what we're guaranteeing, your payments are paid short. And so it's not like we come to you and say, hey, you're going to get this, and then you can't realize it. So that's really kind of how we have skin in the game in this contingent payment. You go next slide. Originally, when we did our high level overview, You guys were spending a little over $1 million a year for your utilities through the 2018 year. And that was at $1.33 a square foot. The national average was about 86 cents a square foot. So you can see you're 54% higher. When we get done with the upgrades and some of the new control systems, the energy management systems, the new spend will drop down to just a shade under 700,000, and it gets you closer to that national average of 91 cents. Keep going. So in the development process since we began here in March, there are 9 things identified, actually 10, but we have 9 of them on here. The first FEM is we're looking at new lighting throughout the district. The second facility improvement measure is the water efficiency upgrades. Then we're going to go down the list here with some controls optimization, building envelope throughout the district, plug load efficiencies. Really, what that means is things that stay on overnight, like projectors or TVs or something like that, would get shut down. New football field lighting, and then at the high school, we'll be looking at the HVAC equipment that was deemed past end of life. Now, when we started the project, it was important for us to partner with somebody like your guys' mechanical contractor, Design Mechanical. Not only do we put our eyes on it, they're putting their eyes on it. And as they went through and did the audits on the longevity that was left in the equipment, we found it's not only just the high school, middle school, and elementary, but there's a lot of end of life equipment throughout the district that it's not when it's going to need to be upgraded, or if it's going to be upgraded, it's just when it needs to be upgraded. And so these are the things we looked at the high school is anything past end of life, looking to replace. Middle school is the chiller and boiler, and Metamere, it's the rooftop RTUs at the school, which I believe is all of them. It's like 38 of them, if I'm not mistaken. We broke out the cost to the right, the overall project cost, and then there's the guaranteed energy savings piece of $316,000. That was on that previous screen where we went from $1 million to 697,000. Operational savings, that was based only on the 3 buildings that we're going to be doing the upgrades and only on the equipment we're going to be touching. And so we really got down into the weeds and pulled out stuff that you currently are spending, and that's where we get that number. These are first year numbers, and so these numbers will go up as time goes on, and there's increases obviously in other costs, but these are the first year numbers, and those will be carried out through the term. The cost avoidance, that number is really, I think Ann said it, it's capital infusion into the project per year, and then we have a one-time rebates working with Evergy. It's right around 415,000. We're still finalizing the exact dollar amount on that. This is a cash flow. So really, as you look at this, you can look at the utility savings on the left, where we're talking about 316,000. It's what I really just showed you on the other page, and then 122,000 on the operational savings, and then the capital cost avoidance savings there at $257,000. Craig, is there anything you want to add on this screen?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really probably jumps out is that, over the years, you see the utility savings increase. And that's because it's anticipated that Evergy is going to continue to raise rates. I think if you look back at the historical rate increases from Evergy in the Kansas City, Missouri area, it's been it's, I think, what was it, 12, 13% annually. And for this project, we're carrying a pretty modest 5% increase every year in expected increases. The operational savings, like you said, Vince, was that, it was straight from your guys' numbers that you've been spending at those 3 buildings, plus a little bit for lighting every year. The performance management fee, I'd like to touch on that for just a second. Every year we provide you the report as part of the contingent payment process That report it's an annual report, although we provide quarterly updates along the way towards that final annual report. And in that, it's our measurement verification specialists touching base with Angela or whoever may be working with you through Sodexo to make sure that your schedules, your operating conditions, all those things are staying the same. They're staying consistent throughout the district, and that all of those great savings that you're able to achieve in the first year or two don't start to evaporate over the years, if that makes sense. So that's some of the highlights of this cash flow. And as you notice, every year, this particular cash flow is set up to be step payments so that every year it's cash flow neutral. And at the end, the district, in theory, would realize $190,000 of extra cash generated at the end of the 20 years.
If you don't mind me hopping in, Vince, if I remember our conversation correctly, you guys said you used the modest 5% increase. If we recognize savings above and beyond what you have guaranteed, those are just ours to recognize and don't impact these calculations, correct?
Correct. Correct. So over here in the first column where you have your utility savings, it'll be our goal throughout the period, as Craig was saying, is to help keep those set points correctly. One of the areas of failure when you do a performance based contract like this is 5 years down the road when everybody decides to go somewhere else and they don't want the involvement anymore, and they're not keeping all their schedules correct. That all of a sudden starts throwing everything off, and it's something that we are going to be the partner for 20 years. This is we're committing to. We're going to be there measuring it the entire time for 20 years. As we go through, and we may say, hey, you need to upgrade some new controls because 5 or 10 years from now they may kind of be at the end of their life. But we will be doing that and helping you keep those set points so that it's not all over the board. So you really have a structured approach on how to keep your utility costs down. If you realize, let's say 120% of the utility savings we have listed, you will get to keep the 20%. So we just have the maximum amount, and then it's done. That's all that we're looking for. So we've been through the 4 steps on the top. We're really finalizing the contract scope, meaning the 2 attorneys have the contract's terms and conditions. And while we've been on the phone here, I actually got a text message that said that they really come to an agreement. It's just a matter of getting the language finalized. So we should have something tomorrow on the terms and conditions, so we can finish populating just really the scope items, such as what exactly is the piece of equipment that we're replacing, and what are we going to put in its place. And so that should be done. And really today, what we're asking for is the approval from the board on the board resolution to allow Kenny to negotiate or sign actually the final contract not to exceed amount pending the legal negotiations. And the construction phase would start right after that. So this is really what I just said, just asking for the board resolution tonight at the board meeting. And then on the 23rd, we will have the final negotiated contract issued in its final form. And then we're looking for signature on the contract by the end of the month. And then starting in November, we're committed to working with the board and giving them quarterly updates for the next 3 years. So if we want to do that at a board meeting, that's fine, or we can, whatever form you would like that in. But that's something we commit to doing, is giving you an update so that you feel like you're in the loop.
Hey, Vince, one other thing I'd like to say about that cash flow real quick is, 20 years sounds like a long time, but I wanted to reassure the board that all of the equipment that we've gone through with Ann and with Dr. Rodriguez and Sodexo is equipment that's going to last that 20 years, right? And in some cases beyond. So I just wanted to reiterate that while 20 years may sound like a long time, all the stuff that we're selecting should last that entire term. Set you guys up for another 20 solid years of use out of those buildings.
Well, and thank you on our part. I know it's been a long journey getting here. Then like I started out, there's been a lot of hours, a lot of number crunching. I really think we've come up with a good project, a good alternative way to finance a project. One thing we didn't touch on is the contingent payment program. It's an off credit program for the school district. And so what that means is once we come out of COVID, this won't have any bearing on your credit rating, and it also allows you to keep all your bonding capacity for all the stuff in the future that you'll be looking to do. And I know that was a concern when we first started. Is we want to leave that bonding capacity out there for the future as best as we can. And so this is an alternative way to do that. Right now the rates are so low that it's not that much difference between a contingent payment rate and the bond rate. It's less than about 1.5%, maybe close to 2%, but not much.
Happy to answer questions, and certainly Ms. Cook and gentlemen, I appreciate your being on the call, and certainly Ms. Cook and a lot of work on her part, but certainly Angela Brantley's part as well, and working with the two of you and your teams and going through all the buildings and going through a variety of different information, and more still to come, but happy to answer additional questions unless Ms. Cook, you have anything else to add.
No, I think that's everything we had. Like, as you said, just happy to respond to any questions that anyone may have.
This is Monica. I have a couple. So you hit the nail on the head at my first thought about the 20-year term and the length of that. So so my first question, or I guess it's really all a big combined question, is why 20 years? Why did we pick that and not something shorter? And then, around that, you mentioned that it was related, I think, to the equipment that needs to be purchased. And maybe it's in that spreadsheet and I just didn't clearly understand it, but was there a calculation done and any sort of comparison done of, okay, if we buy this equipment outright, how much does that cost us compared to this contract, which is, quite extensive for quite a long time. So, what's our cost benefit ratio, I guess, or our ROI on that?
Is that a question for me or is that a question for Ann?
Whoever wants to answer.
I'd say, Ann, let's start with you and we'll go progress from there.
Well, as far as purchasing this outright, right now we don't have the authority to issue any more bonds, and we don't have this much funding available to do these projects. So we would not be able to do these projects at this time, absent some sort of mechanism like this to do that. The 20 years, I'll let Vince expand on that, but basically you need to have it spread out so that you can be capturing those savings and redirecting those funds to make it work, to make the funding come out to make those payments and pay for the project. Because it's $12 million. It's a lot of money. We recognize that. Vince, please feel free to chime in at any point if you want. But a lot of it is, like I say, this is an alternative funding mechanism. We would not be able to do these projects at this time, or until such time that the voters give us additional bonding ability. And the nice thing is that we will still probably want to go out for some bonds, because our list of needs will likely always exceed our list of available funds. So this by doing these projects, we can get this done and still keep our bonding capacity so that we can do the variety of projects that we need to do.
Well, and I think related to that, we did talk about, and we did some voting on our bond and levies and things recently. And we talked about going out for a larger bond in the future in the hopefully not too distant future, are you anticipating that that might not cover these things, or we really truly need it in addition to, and that's why we would need to do this mechanism?
I would say both to that, in my opinion, because I would say number one, absolutely, we could go out in the spring and we could go for a $30 million bond or whatever, and we could absolutely use this 12.5 million to buy whatever we needed to do and those pieces. The challenges to that is obviously we all could come up with additional projects that need to be done above and beyond even that. And so the whole goal is to maximize the amount of money that we're spending and to be able to utilize additional bond funds in an even bigger capacity so that we can do more. As you know, most of our buildings are late 50s, early 60s. I mean, we do a pretty good job, in my opinion, of doing things and making things better, but we still have a lot of HVAC issues and a lot of challenges on any number of different things when we look at that. And when you look at we've never done this type of analysis before to even know how much we're spending per square foot in that kind of regard. So some of this was also us looking at things a little bit differently and kind of seeing where we can be, maybe we've been wasteful, but then trying to just be better. I mean, I've always felt like the district has been better stewards of monies in a lot of ways, and our goal is to continue to do that. And so our taxpayers can see we're doing that and we're maximizing as best we possibly can in that way as well. Ms. Cook, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I did.
It's okay. The only other thing I would add, Ms. Terry, is, as Dr. Rodriguez said, it allows us to do these and do, hopefully other projects, but it's also a part of it is the timing of things too, because right now we would have to go out to a bond election, we would have to issue bonds, then we would have to go through the processes. And as we shared earlier, this equipment is failing us periodically throughout the year. And so we're doing this reactive repairs and replacements again, which is costing us a lot of money. It's not planned and it's causing disruptions in the comfort levels at the building. So part of the benefit of this is also the timing of it. And we can now move forward with these projects and get this all done in much more of a time than we would be if we waited to go out to bonds. And it's just, like I say, it's just a different mechanism, so we can still have those bonds available to do other projects.
Yeah, I missed an opportunity to say being proactive rather than reactive. Thanks for bringing that back up. That's my favorite saying. So thanks for bringing that back up, Ms. Cook.
And this would come out of our existing operating budget, the monies for the year?
It's a combination of things. The energy savings and the operational savings, that's in our budget now, and we would basically just redirect those over to these payments. There is the $257,000 commitment for the capital, and that will come out of our Fund 4, and we do have tax revenues to support that.
And none of this would be affected by the recent cuts that the governor announced, right?
No, I mean, the savings, those are our expenditures. So to my knowledge, the governor isn't messing with expenditures yet, just our revenue. So no, they would still, like I say, we'll have the rebates, we'll have the savings that will be redirected, and then we do have that roughly $250,000 investment every year out of our capital projects fund.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that what we're bringing in is not going to affect what we have the ability to put out if we're bringing in less. So,
if I could say something real quick, you guys did a great job answering those questions. One thing I didn't mention as we went through with everything with COVID and what's coming down the pipe, we kept that in mind as we were going through the development and the design and having our meetings with Angela and Ann and Dr. Rodriguez, and some of the things that are going to be installed when we talk about the new faucets that are going to be installed for the savings, the water efficiency. Those will be touchless faucets and sinks and toilets and anywhere we can put the touchless in where there's water, so that the kids and adults aren't touching those things. Same way when you get to the classrooms, the lights, they're going to be touchless. They'll be on sensors that come on and off. And where we can with the new equipment that's going to be installed in the 3 schools, that new equipment will come with the MERV 13 filters and the UV lights in them. We're looking at a couple other places to put some UV lights, but we haven't got that far. There's some new stuff that just came out on the market, so we just haven't introduced some of that. But we're going to put those filters and lights in the equipment everywhere we can.
All right. Are there any other questions, concerns?
One question. So you mentioned that you'd be redirecting some of the operations funds towards this project. How will you care for the new issues encountered, throughout this process? Will Johnson Controls take care of that? Or will you continue on with the repairs, given that they're not, working on something that has failed? They're in a different part of the school. Or
I apologize. I'm not sure I heard your question, sir. Could you repeat that? I apologize.
yeah, I mentioned that you mentioned that you're going to be redirecting some of the operational funds of the budget toward this project. And so if you encounter new issues throughout the year with any of your facilities, how will you care for that with the transfer of the budget? Will Johnson Controls take over that work or prioritize it in a different way to do those repairs, or how will that be handled?
Well, if you're speaking specifically of the HVAC systems, that is only the 3 schools that we're addressing. As we have HVAC issues in our other schools, and we will, those will still continue to be addressed by our facilities team. As far as the redirection, those energy savings are guaranteed. They will be there, or if they're not, Johnson Controls is on the hook for those. The operational savings, we know that we've been spending that money. Yes, we will still continue to spend money in other buildings, and no. So if something happens at Belvedere, Johnson Controls will not take over and do Belvedere. Right now they will be doing this at the high school, the middle school in Meadowmere. And this was through conversations with us, and specifically Angela Brantley and her team, as far as which they know which systems have been the most problematic from a work order standpoint. And then also when Johnson Controls did the survey of all of our equipment, they could very easily see that it was well past its lifespan. And if it wasn't giving us the blues, it was going to very quickly. So I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Specifically at the high school, the Sodexo would continue to do the routine maintenance that's normally involved, filter changes, tune-ups, things like that. That $107,000 was specifically money that had been being spent on emergency repairs, things breaking and failing, that you should have the confidence that that's not going to happen for some time with all this new equipment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, any other questions?
And what's a little better description on what's envelope, building envelope? What does that cover?
Yeah, so during our surveys, what we discovered is that over time, a lot of basic small things, in particular, door sweeps, weather stripping around doors, a lot of roof, wall intersections as they kind of come together. There's a lot of gaps that we've discovered over time. Things have settled. All those are going to be sealed, all new door strips, weather stripping. A big one is window film. So at multiple schools, we're going to be putting in a nice window film over some of your older windows, help block a lot of the solar heat gain that comes in, and a lot of the glare, those sorts of things. The gyms, we're going to put in destratification fans. So whenever you have a tall space like a gymnasium, especially in the winter, the hot air will tend to rise and you lose a lot of heat out the top. So these are small fans that will direct air back downwards from the gymnasiums and keep the air basically mixed in those spaces, helps pick up a little savings. And then on some of the older HVAC equipment that we're not replacing, there's a program there to go out, re-straighten out all of the bent coils. I think you're probably familiar with everybody's. If you go out and look at your air conditioner, it's got all those really fine fins on the heat exchangers. Go straighten all of those out, clean them off really well, and just sort of refresh those older units a little bit. Does that answer the question?
Was muted. Yes, that answers the question. seems to be kind of regular maintenance issues.
Yeah, but it's things that people tend to not think about. And when, you know, like a lot of the caulking and that sort of stuff, and then the resealing around the settled places, it just seals off a lot of air gaps, and it just picks up a lot of easy to find energy savings. So.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? And if not, we'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve something. Hang on. I move we adopt a resolution that authorizes the superintendent to execute a performance contract with Johnson Controls for an amount not to exceed $12,269,064. And this is Monica Terry.
Not everyone at once. Second, come on. Anyone?
Don Kessinger, second.
Whew, thank you. Been properly moved and second that we approve the recommendation as presented. We get a roll call vote, please. And just in case, Kathy, can you read the recommendation off, please?
It's just as Monica said, I don't have it in front of me, Mr. President.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I could be on lazy. Adopt
I've
the
got it.
resolution.
Adopt resolution.
Authorizes the superintendent to execute a performance contract with Johnson Controls for an amount not to exceed $12,269,064. Roll call vote, please.
Chuck Cornforth,
No.
Don Foy,
Aye.
Damon Green,
Aye.
Don Kessinger,
Aye.
Monica Terry,
Aye.
Leonard Green,
Aye. Motion carries. Is that 5-1?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, family and community involvement focus area, safety survey.
Yes, and thank you, Vince, and thank you, Craig. Appreciate you both.
Yes, gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, happy to move into this area. A lot of good things to be able to share, and certainly we try to bring this stuff back every year. Certainly the safety survey we've done, and even though we ended the year a little differently than what we had anticipated, certainly we were still able to get this completed and everything. So very happy to have Ms. Cordier here and to be able to share a little bit more information with us. So I've got everything ready to go. So whenever you are ready, Ms. Cordier, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Good evening, everyone. We will talk very briefly about our safety survey that we conducted this year. I do want to make mention that this year the survey window was only open for 2 weeks versus the usual 3 weeks that we have done in previous years. And that was due to us not returning back after spring break. The elementary part, that is for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students only. This year, some of our information that we saw that our 4th graders this year, there were less 4th graders that took the actual survey, actually about 20% less than the 3rd and 5th grade students. Overall, however, our elementary students do feel safe in the classroom, in the hallway, and in the restroom. If you notice, which was a slight increase, that over 85% of our students in the elementary know how to report an unsafe situation. They also feel that they can go to an adult if they have a problem, and it will be solved in a timely manner. So we can look now at our middle school. Our middle school, there was a decrease of 337 students that participated in this year's survey. Once again, we had a few more females that took the survey. Also, if you noticed, our 7th grade cohort was the largest this year, but that also ties into the last year it was the 6th grade. So the same cohort has we have more kiddos that are taking the survey from that cohort. Overall, 91% of our middle school students feel safe, and that was a 3% increase from last year. Also, 32%, there was a 32% increase from last year that our students feel respected by the differences, that's including gender, race, and their culture. This is a very high point for our middle school, especially with everything that is going on and how society sometimes struggles with respecting differences. We can definitely take the lead from our middle schoolers that they are definitely making an increase. In our high school, there were 264 less high school students that participated in the survey this year. Students believe that they are prepared for crisis, and the staff is also prepared for crisis as well. This year, there was an increase in students this year that are aware of the suicide prevention, the various suicide preventions that are in place. However, there are still 50% that still do not take advantage at the high school with our student support services. That number is a little bit lower than it was last year, a little under 20% lower. But we still need to figure out as a whole how we can get our students to take advantage of those supports that are in place for them at the high school. For our staff, there were 51 less staff members that participated in this survey this year. Overall, 88% of our staff feel safe in their building. There was also a 10% increase on the strongly agree about visitors that acknowledge and are accounted for at all times. I think that that is definitely most likely due to the Raptor system that is in all of our schools. That was something that in the past had been shared in the comments that they were concerned about. Also, 85% of the staff communicated that buildings take all threats and rumors of violence seriously and properly investigate. Also, all incidents regarding safety is clear and concise, including a 10% increase of the communication, that the communication is timely. Finally, with our parents, about 63% of our parents came from they were elementary parents. Overall, 87% of our parents feel that their school is safe. And then with the parents surveyed last year, there was a 6% increase in the very safe category for overall, how do they feel with their school safety. And this year there was a 5% increase. So that's very encouraging that our parents, our students, and our staff are feeling safe in our building. And it is my hope that we can continue this upward trend. So any questions?
One thing I'll add is just, I mean, I think all of you on the board, certainly whether you've been on the board for a long time or not, know that this is one of the areas that we've spent a lot of time over the last 4 years devoting to, and I know we still have a lot of work to do, but we've certainly tried to devote a lot of different things, and this survey has provided us a lot of great information to help make sure that are we on the right path, or what do we need to start changing. And so one of the questions that I get from you as a board, which I love, is, well, how do you know the things that you are doing are working? So again, this is one of those components that we really look at of, how do we know that our kids are taking advantage of, or do they know this, and do they feel safe? And then I mean, it's a very simple question, but you know, our results several years ago didn't necessarily tell us what we wanted to hear, but it was what we needed to hear. And so as we continue to adjust, and you know, one year the buses weren't necessarily safe, and then some kids on the playground, they don't necessarily feel safe, and so we keep adjusting and kind of getting to a point where, you know, how do we make sure that we are ongoing? But the discussion with even with our district safety committee continues to be around what can we do to make our families, our students, our staff, and everybody feel safe while they're here. So again, we're happy to answer any questions, but I appreciate Angela's presentation.
This is Monica. I have a quick question. So when I look at the percentages regarding the feeling safe, I like what I see, 86, 88, 90, 91, you know, kind of feeling that. What would you consider your goal for that number to be? I mean, obviously we'd all love 100%, right? We know that's not realistic, but you know, I guess I kind of think about my own company when we look at percentages, you know, world class is in the 90s. And so you know, we're not quite there for everything, but what would your goal be and how do you have plans to get there?
I think the most important thing is building relationships with the students. I think that our students need to understand that one, sharing the expectations within the classroom, embracing that BIST and the positive PBIS, making sure one, that we have those expectations in place. And two, like I said, building the relationships is the most important thing. So our kiddos are aware that they can go to an adult and share their problems, their concerns. And then once they do that, addressing the problems and concerns in a timely manner. And then also providing them with any additional emotional or mental support that they would need to solve that problem.
Thank you. I'm also thinking about from a staff perspective, you know, the 88% feel safe in their building or school. That means 12% don't. Now, I don't know how that translates to the number of people that took the survey versus actual people in the building, right? So that's a difference. But, you know, what are your thoughts around increasing that number?
I think that with the building leadership team, having that with the administrator and the building leadership teams, having that conversation with the staff to find out what are their specific concerns and then being able to address those. So it's that getting that feedback from the staff to see what their specific concerns are.
And I guess I just weigh in on that different buildings, that 12%, the concerns may be different based on geography or the layout of the building or different initiatives with behavior management that they've implemented. So I think Angela makes a good point. You have to look at that data and slice it by building, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where the conversations come in. And so you talked about, you know, the building relationships with our students, and obviously there's an important side of that with our staff as well. And so we not only see this breakdown, we see it on a survey, but then going into the buildings. So for example, right now, until we do something with the front and the opening of Martin City, there's going to be some that are just not going to feel safe in that building. And so every year they're going to continue to mark that down a little bit because they still think that that entrance is not necessarily safe. And obviously I agree. And that's going to be on our next projects. And I've already told them that this is one of the next things that we're going to be doing. So the opening of Meadowmere and being able to enclose that front, there's going to be teachers now in that building that automatically feel safer with the way that we've done that front entrance and things like that, which may help. So I think it's an ongoing thing, but as we break it down by building, then it's a matter of being in that building and getting a sense of what is it in this building that's that may be leading and help and kind of not helping us get to where we want to be. I think 95% is always a good, because I think you're always going to have a percentage, but I think anything over 90 would be my overall goal every year, to always be over 90. But even if it's 95%, I got 5% of my staff that don't feel safe. And is it classified staff? Is it certified staff? And then you kind of break all those components down and try to get to the heart of what that may be.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments? I'll add my little 2 cents. I just wanted to say I appreciate looking at those numbers and seeing the increase because it goes to what was stated, that the relationships are key, and it goes on both sides, because you can have all of the things in place, but if you don't have the backing of it, because I remember as a teacher, you'd have a lot of things in place in terms of policy and procedures, but a lot of people just didn't feel like they were being backed up. So obviously that has changed, and that is a great thing because it's a morale booster and it just keeps things going. So thank you. Keep up the good work. Appreciate it.
We'll keep it rolling here with your permission, sir.
Yes, sir. Please do.
Well, we're going to double up a little bit. I'll turn it to Miss Deanda, but it may still continue to be the Angela Cordier show a little bit. So with the student assistance program and an update, again, this is a program that we implemented a couple years ago, thankfully with the board and supporting what we wanted to do and providing additional supports to our students. And so for those of you that are not aware, this is that program that allows any of our staff or our students to be able to call in. Students in particular, we had the staff side already kind of in place, but now our students can call in and have a licensed therapist on the phone at any point in time. And we wanted to be able to do this, especially now. It's even more important when we haven't been in school, but this was something that we wanted to do anyways. And this is back to that question with the board of, this would be a hard one for us to say, how do you know it's working? Other than we know it's needed. And if it helped one person, we always felt like that's all it needed to do. But we want to make sure that we continue to make sure that everybody knows that this is still available. And every year we get new kids. And so it's like about 2 or 3 times a year, we still need to make sure that we're putting this in front of people. So gives you a little context there, but we kind of provide this update as well every year. So Ms. Deanda.
Yes, and I will turn it over to Ms. Cordier because she works with that, but we have been working directly with them at New Directions and try to get some data over the 3-year period to compare. New Directions is going to be putting some additional PR campaign in place so that we can get that out to the students, because while we think that this is a pretty economical addition to emotional supports that Dr. Rodriguez has spearheaded over the last few years, it overlaps with Cornerstone's support as well. So we want to be able to differentiate this for some of the families. And we want to make sure that we're advertising it, especially if we were hoping that it would be a little more used while kids were at home, because we really believed that they needed those additional supports, but folks just weren't accessing that. But so we're going to do what we can this year to make sure we publicize that, and we hope to get some more usage. And Angela's going to go through the data with you.
Okay, this is attachment 2. Actually, we're only going to look at slide 4 and 5 on attachment 2. This is, we need to go back one more. First of all, the issues that you can see for the last 3 years, the highest percentage of the presenting issues was anxiety and stress. After that, it has been depression. And so we know that both a lot of our middle school and our high school students deal with the anxiety and stress. It's just, once again, if you'll recall in the student survey, only 50% of our kiddos are actually going to student services to actually get support. One of the supports is when our kiddos are stressing, that they are anxious, that they are stressed, that they are depressed, we are definitely recommending that they contact student assistance program. The next slide talks about the knowledge of the student assistance program. As you can see, 60% is through the district leadership. Our counselors are very much familiar with the student assistant program. I have also been responsible during some of our discipline hearings, recommending the student assistance program. Sometimes our kiddos just need help. The advantage about the student assistance program is not only do our students receive 3 free, they can have participate in 3 free visits. They're at New Directions, but after the 3rd visit, then if they find that the child needs additional support or family support, then that's when they begin to talk about the services that they can provide. But it's that 60% is very good. We're also looking at the 40% just by the word of families or friends that are getting that information that we have this program in place. So we are really looking at increasing definitely increasing the utilization of the program. If we don't mind, we can go to attachment 1. Last year, the board requested a comparison of the utilization of.
I thought she was only gonna do the one. Okay, got it. Sorry.
No worries. You guys had requested a comparison of the last 3 years. So we were able to provide that information this year. If you on the second slide, you see that our first year, there were 75 participants. Our second year, there were 88. And then this year, there were 24 participants. Our goal is to always be at about 2%. That is what is considered idea. And so we didn't quite make it our first year, but we did make it our second year. And then this year, we didn't make 1%. There are some questions on possibly why we did not make that. I do want to remind you that we now have Cornerstones of Care, which offers on-site support with the student assistance program. There is a process where our students or our parents call. There is an appointment that is made. They have a choice on where they can go. It's either in Lee Summit or in South Kansas City. So where it is, it's immediate when you have that support right there in the school versus the parents getting transportation to take their child to New Directions. As you can tell, like I said earlier, anxiety and stress has been the biggest concern with our kids. If we'll go up one more. And as you can see where our first year, there were a lot of males. This year, it was even. What I would like to do is kind of share what can we do to get our utilization percentage up. The first thing is we need to ensure that not only our counselors, but our teachers understand the process of student assistance program, understanding that there are 3 free visits that our kids can go see and talk with a professional. We also, I've spoken with Sheba, and what we are going to do is commit to not only putting all of this information on our website so parents and students can see it, but also making sure that we are doing either phone blasts or emails at least 3 times out of the year to make sure that the student assistant program, that parents and students both know the support that we can provide. So those are just a couple of the suggestions on how we can improve. And I'm hoping through these various things that we'll be able to improve our utilization for next year.
Well, and I think in addition, obviously with the shutdown and students not being face to face with the adults that make a lot of the referrals, that impacted the usage, because kids can't just call up. We wish that there was some kind of a support line, but due to mental health regulations and insurance and those kinds of things, we can't do that right now. Although we're not giving up on something like that. So it's clear that the shutdown impacted that, and we're just going to keep trying again this year. Happy to answer any questions.
Monica, you can always count on me, right?
Dan.
On your attached, thank you for this information, by the way. And I'm so happy to see your smiling face, Ms. Cordier. I miss it.
Oh,
I
I
love
miss
it.
you guys too, definitely.
On your attachment to slide 4 that you drew our attention to initially, with the pie chart discussing, anxiety, stress, depression, family as the top 3 things. How are those broken out? So how do you determine that the primary issue is anxiety, stress versus depression versus family? Because I'm kind of thinking, if someone's having a struggling family life, for example, that could cause depression and anxiety and stress, right? So how do you separate them out for this pie chart?
When this information is provided to us from the Student Assistance Program, the students are, when their first visit, they are asked, there is a questionnaire that the parent and the student fills out. That is actually where they begin the process of, okay, so you've identified that you're stressed about something. So this information is actually provided to us by Student Assistance Program, but they gain that information from the questionnaire.
And Monica, they might be comorbid with each other, but there's a ranking that the Student Assistance Program puts together, and so it's the overriding diagnosis that they calculate that and capture it, even though they might be in both categories.
Correct.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? Whoa. Somebody's got a loud book. If no further questions, then this was also informational, so we can move on to our governance area. We have some policies, I believe, on first reading.
We do. Extremely proud of this to be able to present. So turn it over to Ms. Myers.
So tonight we have 2 district initiated policy revisions for you. They both relate to adding bereavement leave. This is a result of discussions through Grandview 10, and we're, as Dr. Rodriguez said, very happy to present those. If you have any questions, glad to answer any questions or ask for assistance from Ms. DeAnda on that.
I guess before we get totally started into that discussion, I just want to say this just shows how much importance Grandview 10 and how much it makes a difference in our district and the way things are going and the way that we work together. So I think this is awesome.
Well, and thanks to the board members who, serve on that as well. And it's a time commitment, but certainly the group that puts that together, and Ms. DeAnda and Ms. Cook as well. But this is, like you said, part of that came out of those surveys and that conversation. So like I said, very proud to be able to present this.
Definitely. So if there are no questions, go ahead.
I'd like to add to that. The changes in these policies were one of the things that I was proudest of being part of Grandview 10 and Grandview 8 this year.
Thank you for your time and commitment to that. Appreciate it. And with that, if there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Monica. I'm happy to move that we approve the revisions to policy GCBDA and GDBDA on a first reading as presented.
It's Dawn Foy, second.
It's been properly moved and second that we approve the revisions to policies GCBDA and GDBDA on first reading as presented. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Chuck Cornforth,
Aye.
Don Foy,
Aye.
Damon Green. Yes, I didn't hear it. Don Kessinger,
Aye.
Monica Terry,
Aye.
Leonard Green.
Aye, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Next up, report of board members and agenda requests. Do we have any? Okay, don't everyone speak at once? I see head nods and, all right. Well, we'll just keep moving. Not that anyone's trying to get out of here or anything. Miscellaneous, any miscellaneous that we need to discuss? I'll just say looking forward to next Saturday. Get ready, strap in. The ride is coming. All right. Favorite part everybody's looking for. I'll entertain a motion. Don't everybody speak at once.
Move we adjourn. This is Monica Terry.
Come on, guys.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Been properly moved and second that we adjourn. Roll call vote, please.
Chuck Cornforth,
Aye.
Don Foy,
Aye.
Damon Green, Don Kessinger,
Aye.
Monica Terry,
Aye.
Leonard Green.
Aye, motion carries. We adjourn. Thank you very much.